Okay. 10:30 p.m. on March 7th, 2000. It was a dark and stormy night at the Bellevue Women's Hospital in Seattle. Well, actually, I don't know, but it was probably because it's always raining in Seattle, and it was 10:30 in the winter, so it was definitely dark. But on that night, a not so small 10-pound, 7-ounce baby. The nurses actually called me the big one. By the name of Riley Brooke Harbeck was born, and this is where my story begins. My memories of my first 3 years in Seattle are minimal. The only things I remember of Seattle are our saltwater fish tank, playing in our backyard with my older brother Aiden, and standing in our front lawn looking at our house that was oddly yellow. In August of 2003, our family moved back to Virginia because being 2,500 miles away from our family was difficult. I was only 3 at the time, so moving away from Seattle wasn't difficult for me. And the only thing I remember from the move is standing by our front door of an empty house and seeing someone carrying a carpet. Once settled, I began going to preschool, at Building Blocks Preschool. There I met a lot of people I'm still friends with today, such as Rosie. You can see her over there. Any vivid memories I have as a child begin around this time in my life. I remember preschool for the most part to just be playing. The 3 best toys at preschool were the pirate figures, the cardboard blocks that everyone knows and loves, and the Hot Wheels. I remember there was one pirate that was different from all the rest because it had a red shirt. So every day I would hide it so that I would be the one to use it the next day. Other than random memories of playing, the other things I remember were the physically painful things. One time when chasing someone on the playground, my foot got caught on a step and I face slammed in the playground and broke my nose. So far it's the only bone I've broken, and I hope to keep it that way. When we first moved here, the church we went to was Covenant Presbyterian. These pictures probably won't have much to do with what I'm talking about. They're just pictures I found. The church we went to was Covenant Presbyterian Church. I don't remember the nursery or Sunday school, but I remember the playground and Vacation Bible School. The playground was based off of Noah's Ark, like all the other playgrounds at churches. But it was mostly cool because there was a small hole I could crawl through and hide from the other kids. Vacation Bible School, on the other hand, was not cool. Not cool whatsoever. There was only one thing that I could think of I actually liked. They gave out toys that had to do with the theme of the week-long movie/show we had been watching all week, and that was pretty cool. Other than that, all I remember is being bored and not having a great time. My understanding of God at the time was that he was an old dude that lived in heaven and was always looking at me, and to me, heaven was like earth, but the ground was made of clouds and everything was gold-plated. I'm not sure what brought me to this conclusion, but I held it for an oddly long time. It was also around this time that I learned that I was going to be a big brother. I don't remember my initial feelings. I just remember being told that Brody would be born sometime in the beginning of May. Soon after that, I was told my first cousin would be born in August. I have no memories of Brody or Luke being born, and very few of them as infants. The earliest memory I have of them was at their baptisms, where Luke, I think this was actually, you can see him grabbing on the page, but he started to tear pages out of my uncle's Bible, and it was hilarious. In August of 2005, I began kindergarten at Peakview Elementary School. My teacher was Mrs. Wilkes, and I remember her being nice yet strict. Kindergarten was also the year that I began to view things based on if they were valuable use of my time. The first thing I said to my mom when I got off the bus was, well, that was a waste of my time. And I continued to feel that way for the remainder of elementary school. First grade was another new adventure. I had Miss Nussbaum, and she was the first teacher I can remember really liking. She's also the teacher that taught me how to count to 100. And I remember thinking how cool numbers were, and that was probably the beginning of my love of math and logic. Second grade was similar to first grade. I had Miss Neese, and she was mean, but she still liked me. Still none of the classes or activities we did interest me, and I felt like I could be using my time better elsewhere. Also, during these first 3 years of elementary school, we started going to a new church, Christ the King Episcopal Church. It was a small church that met at Pleasant Valley Elementary School, and I enjoyed it more than our other church, Covenant. I'm not sure if it's because I was older or because the people there were cooler, but I definitely had a better time going there. Children's church was cool sometimes, but I remember getting in trouble a lot and clashing with the leader. While attending Christ the King, we had a small group, but the children would usually just hang out and play while the adults did their Bible study. While hanging out with friends during small group, I learned that I really enjoyed being around people, and the people made me happy. We continued to go to Christ the King until it split because of political differences and eventually died out. Third grade was a big change for me. The Rockingham County Public School System had recently added a new school, and it changed its districts, which meant I had to go to a new school, which was oddly further away. So starting in third grade, I began my time at Coburn Elementary School. At first, it was scary because I didn't know a lot of people. Then I met new people. I didn't really hang out with them. I just met them, such as Nick, Josh, and Colin. In fourth grade, I have memories of a class called Challenge, which apparently I went to in second and third grade, but I have no memories of it. It was a class for the gifted and talented students that gave groups of kids challenging problems that they then had to solve. This was by far the my most favorite thing in elementary school. Everything else felt like a waste of time, but this was something that I found valuable because it wasn't easy. It was a challenge, hence the name of the class. It also taught me the importance of critical thinking, which is one of the most important things I've ever learned. Though I found this class to be very fun, the rest of the classes were boring and easy. Because classes were boring to me and some of my other friends, we began to do things that were less boring to us, which often included us getting in trouble. This continued through 5th grade. We would have a stellar time in challenge class, but the moment we went back to normal classes, we would immediately get bored. All we ever did in class was preparation for SOLs, which was by far the worst thing. I hated them because it felt like a waste of my time. My friends were also not a good influence. They set rules for people we couldn't talk to and people that we had to be mean to. I hated it because it felt wrong to me, but if I didn't listen to the rules, I would then be subject to their bullying. It got bad enough that I no longer wanted to go to school. My parents tried to find a way around the SOLs, but the school wouldn't let me, and the only way to get out of the friend group I was in was to leave. So, in the wake of bad teachers, bad friends, and SOLs, my parents took me out of public school in April of my 5th grade year, and I was homeschooled for April and May. They suggested to me the idea of going to a school called Eastern Mennonite School, and I was against the idea of going to any other school other than Montevideo, the school I would have regularly gone to, because I would miss all of my friends. But begrudgingly, I applied, and to my despair, I got in. I visited EMS, and I was given a tour by Jack Anderson. I actually thought it was pretty cool. Getting in was honestly one of the best things that happened to me, even though at first I didn't want to go. Showing up for 6th grade orientation was very scary. There were a mix of strangers and people from elementary school that probably didn't like me because I was mean to them. But I made it through. I began bonding with Colin, Nick, Vincent, Tim, and Theo because we decided to sit together at lunch one day, and this was the start of many friendships at EMS. 6th grade was the start of many of my interests. I began to find an interest in math and science. I still enjoyed history, but not as much as the other two, and as for English, I hated it. And it's still that case today. I also started to play viola. I moved up from around this time, I moved from Cub Scouts to Boy Scouts. The crossover to Boy Scouts was great because the adults finally let go, and it became one of the first things that I could do that was completely independent and boy-led. Other than Boy Scouts, I found my second largest hobby, video games. We got an Xbox, and I started realizing how much fun games were. I loved them because you could play with friends without having to be with them. Whereas so many other things felt like a waste of time, Boy Scouts and video games felt valuable. Boy Scouts taught me how to lead and do service in my community, and video games were mentally enriching and socially enriching. These two things continue to be my largest hobbies today, except for Boy Scouts because they aged out, but whatever. 7th grade wasn't much different than 6th. The only big difference was that we had lockers. I continued to enjoy math, science, and history while disliking English. During 7th grade, I decided to play basketball. That's probably one of the only times I was ever actually on the court. I made the team, but I didn't really enjoy it. I barely played, and my asthma began to get worse, which just made it unenjoyable completely. I also then played in 8th grade for some reason, and the same thing still happened. It was at this point after 8th grade basketball that I decided to stop playing basketball. Also in 7th grade, I decided to do the middle school play. Colin had a good picture of it. I didn't find any. It was Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors, and that was awful. Nothing really important happened in 8th grade other than some petty drama. Algebra 1 was cool for the most part. I also won the Geography B, which was cool. I think I beat James. Second place. This brings us to a more important part of my life, high school. I was going from 8th to 9th grade. Going from 8th to 9th didn't feel that different because it was in the same building, but I knew I was joining the big boys of the school, so it was a pretty exciting time. So 9th grade, my interests stayed the same between middle and high school. Math and science first, history second, everything else, and then English last. Geometry ended up being the hardest class for me. For whatever reason, it just didn't click, and I ended up getting a B overall in the class, my only one ever. U.S. history was also an interesting class, but Miss Roth had to have a baby and leave us. For a lot of the year, with a sub that wasn't very good. When she got back, we ended up having to do JFK to present in a matter of 3-ish weeks or something like that, so my knowledge of U.S. history is probably shallower than most. Still, it was a fun class. By far, my most favorite thing was biology. Dr. Stapleton quickly captured my attention with her fun labs and interesting lectures. She also made sure we knew how to think critically and logically better than almost any other teacher. Colin and I also did an honors bio project that involved using bacteriophage to kill bacteria we found around the school. This was absolutely fascinating to me. The idea that I was doing real research intrigued me, pulling me closer to the STEM field. I continued to do Boy Scouts and got more leadership positions in the troop by being elected as the troop scribe and being appointed as the troop guide for new scouts entering the troop. Along with Boy Scouts, I began to volunteer with the Children's Museum. They asked me to create a curriculum for a Minecraft class and teach it. As a ninth grader, this was a daunting task, but I did it and made some pretty great connections in the process. After I taught the class, they asked if I wanted to be on the youth advisory board at the Children's Museum, and I joined. This allowed me to do even more with the Children's Museum. I also joined the varsity tennis team in ninth grade. I wasn't very good, but somehow I was still on the team. Tennis was a good sport for me because 1, you didn't have to run much, and 2, it was more of an individual sport. I really don't like letting people down, so in tennis, the only person you usually ever let down is yourself. But for me, that is better than letting other people down. Faith. In middle school, our family started going to Rise Faith Community. This was the first church that I actually enjoyed listening to sermons. The way our pastor Amanda speaks is interesting and thought-provoking. It was also in high school that I began asking questions. They weren't very deep questions, but they were questions nonetheless. 10th grade was an odd year for me. For whatever reason, I became distanced from many of my friends, and I began to struggle with anxiety, which in turn distanced me even more from my friends. The anxiety often caused me to have mental breakdowns and miss out on camping trips with Boy Scouts and other social events with my friends. I became a catastrophic thinker, and it even became hard for me to wake up and go to school. I felt very alone. It lasted for most of the year until I got medicine and met with a counselor for a few times. To this day, my anxiety still affects me, but I've learned ways to cope. I then decided to face my anxiety one day and see what was going on with Casey and Braden. It ended up with us building gaming computers and starting new friendships. Through gaming, I was reconnected with Jack Reimer, who was at Spotswood at the time, and I met Chad, who quickly became a great friend of mine. Eventually, I became reconnected with all my friends through video games, and I'm forever thankful. As far as academics go, 10th grade was relatively uninteresting. I was thankful to be out of geometry and in a class that I enjoyed, Algebra 2. I enjoyed algebra because it was logical and doing things logically pleases my brain. Chemistry was also cool, but I realized in that class that I didn't want to pursue a career in chemistry. English 10 was like all my other English experiences thus far. Bad. But we read Of Mice and Men, and that ended up being my favorite book. I also took sociology with the legend himself, Curtis Stutzman. For whatever reason, the way Mr. Stutzman teaches can make any subject interesting to anyone. Though I didn't think sociology would be very interesting, it was probably one of the most interesting classes I've ever taken because of Mr. Stutzman. Co-curriculars, they're relatively the same. I was still in Boy Scouts, doing all the things that you could imagine. I really started to do a lot with the Youth Advisory Board, or YAB, and the Children's Museum. I continued to teach the Minecraft class, and I started helping out with a weekly Minecraft club at the museum. I also helped teach a Star Wars class, passing on one of my loves to a younger age group. I also continued to play tennis and improve as a player. Other than Bible classes and going to church occasionally, my faith didn't really change much in 10th grade. I kept asking questions and kept listening, but nothing really changed. 11th grade was a big year. Other than being the year that matters most for college, it was the year that I really started to become independent, and because I got my driver's license and took on a lot more responsibilities. 11th grade was the hardest year academically. At that point in life, pre-calc, which really should be called Algebra 3 in my opinion, was my favorite math class yet. Fun math combined with a great teacher made for a great class. I also began to realize that I could solve problems without knowing how to do everything, using my critical thinking skills that both Ms. Hershey and Dr. Stapleton stressed as one of the most important things to learn. AP Bio was also a super fun class. This was one of the first classes that I actually had to study for, and in turn, it made me a better student. Dr. Stapleton's classes have been some of the most fun, not only because of the content, but because of the way she teaches. It's just awesome. World History with Mr. Yoder was also a great class. Learning about our world while hearing wise words from Mr. Yoder was fun and made for a great class. Mr. Stutzman also taught me how to write a good paper in speech in advanced comp and speech class. I did touring choir, which made me think about God more than I ever had before, but I'll talk more about that when I get to faith. This was the biggest year for me my biggest year for co-curricular activities for me. The summer before 11th grade, I went on a Boy Scout trip with my dad and good Scout buddies to the Boundary Waters of Minnesota. This trip was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done. We went a total of 104 miles and saw some pretty amazing sights. I just have like 3 pictures in here that are kind of interesting. Later in the year, I was elected as the senior patrol leader, or SPL, of my troop, which is the leader of the entire troop. As SPL, I had the responsibility of planning a camporee for the Stonewall Jackson Area Council. A camporee is a camping event for everyone in the entire district of Scouts. My patrol leader council and I spent a whole year planning and then pulled off the huge Oregon Trail themed event for the council. About 200 people showed up and it went super well. Many people told me it was one of the best camporees they had been to in a while. With the Children's Museum and YAB, I continued to teach classes. I helped create and teach the curriculum for a programming with Minecraft class. I've done a lot of stuff with Minecraft. Which taught kids the basics of programming. I also helped to make an escape room for younger kids at the Children's Museum. I was also part of the YAB Executive Council and helped to do a lot of community events for the museum. I became one of the soccer managers for the varsity soccer team in 11th grade as well. I loved soccer but was never athletic enough to play, so this was a great way for me to be part of the team. I also continued my tennis career. My faith changed the most in 11th grade, more than any of the year. Like I said previously, I joined Toy and Choir, and because of Tor, I hate that picture. And because of Tor, my faith changed drastically. Mr. Stutzman forced us to think, and I'm forever thankful, about God and our faith, something I've never really done up until that point. The songs also made me think about faith, but because I began to think, I began to be filled with doubt. By the end of the year, I was so unsure about everything that I just had no clue whether or not God actually existed. But I kept asking questions and moving forward. 12th grade has definitely been my favorite year so far. The two most difficult classes I've ever taken happened this year, mechanical physics and calculus. Physics really tested my algebra skills and forced me to study. It's not often that I study for a class, but I'm thankful whenever I have to because it makes me a better student. Calculus pushed me because it really forced me to apply my knowledge to a scenario. Not many classes force students to think as hard as calculus did, and I'm really glad that it did. Government was a really interesting, important class. To be honest, I didn't really know much about our government, so it's helpful to learn. I really didn't think politics were important until this year, so thankfully now I do. Scientific research methods and biotech show me what it's like to do actual research, and it's not easy. Thinking of your own ideas to research is hard. The summer before senior year, I completed my Eagle Scout project. I, with help from a few friends, built a modular stage for my church that can be moved so that my church has more space if needed. We also went on a family vacation to Yellowstone in the west, which is pretty cool. And it might be the last family vacation we have for a while. Because everyone's moving on in life. There. My time in Boy Scouts came to an end after I got my Eagle Scout. It was a bittersweet moment because Scouts have been a part of my life for 12 years, so aging out was kind of sad. Luckily, I can still be a Scout leader. I also continue to be a part of YAB and on the Executive Council. The people I've met at the Children's Museum have been some of the coolest people I've ever met, and giving back to the community is such a great feeling. I was also the soccer manager again, which is fun, and I play tennis as well. So faith. My faith currently is in an odd spot. I've gone past the point of being told what to believe, and have started to explore my faith in terms of me. And I think I really relate more to being agnostic than Christian at this point, because frankly, I have no clue. Touring choir makes me think about God in a way that I probably wouldn't otherwise, which is good. And the fact that millions of people are Christians actually helps. I can't imagine so many people following blindly if there wasn't actually something there. Also, the fact that we exist on this planet at this point in time is pretty wild. The chance of us being here randomly or solo, the part of me doesn't think that it's random. Something has to be doing something. I've never really heard a call from God either, like many people, or at least I don't think I have. But I haven't given up, and I'm still searching, because deep down I know it's the right thing to do. Now for some thank yous. To Eastern Mennonite School and the teachers, thank you for teaching me. Everything you have ever told me has been valued to me in some form or another. Thank you for putting up with me being a smart aleck or just being dumb. I will forever be grateful for everything that I learned here. To the boys, thank you for showing me what real friendship looks like. Thank you for setting me straight when I was just being a jerk or plain stupid. Thank you for your long calculus study sessions and random conversations while carpooling. Thank you for your brownies and nerding out over Star Wars with me. Thank you for being at my side no matter the circumstances. I love you guys. To Auntie Shane, Uncle Scott, Luke, and Emily, thank you for being incomparably nice. Thank you for giving me somewhere to hang out when I'm bored, and for always giving me food when I'm hungry. I love you. To my grandparents, thank you for being the greatest role models that anyone could ask for. Your love and willingness to drop what you're doing and help me with whatever is crazy to me. I hope to maybe be able to one day live like you. I love you. To Aiden, thank you for being my first friend. Even though I was and maybe still am annoying, I'm thankful that you put up with me. Thanks for our nerdy talks about whatever comes to mind and for your never-ending desire to think. Never stop thinking. I love you. To Brody, even though we don't always get along, I'm thankful that you're my Even though we don't always get along. I'm thankful that you're my brother. Your silly comments and strength to overcome everything that has tried to drag you down inspires me. I love you. Now for my parents. To Dad. Jeez. You're the smartest person I know. Your immense knowledge and everlasting desire to learn is amazing. Thank you for teaching me that it's okay to be wrong through our long, drawn-out arguments when I was just being stubborn. Thank you for driving me to school almost every day for most of middle and high school. You love everyone endlessly and are always willing to drop what you're doing to help someone out. I've learned what is important in life through your constant, selfless actions. I love you. To Mom, thank you for always being there. When I'm freaking out over nothing or doing something dumb, you're setting me straight. You always know what to say or do to help me out. Your joy and pleasure in giving is unmatched. Thank you for listening to me rant, or what I like to call thinking out loud, for many hours, and for your wise, enlightening words, from which I have learned many things. Thank you for putting up with me and my other brothers and being unbelievably patient. Both you and Dad have impacted my life so much, and I'm so grateful. I love you. Next year for college, I'll be going to JMU and studying computer science. Thank you all for coming.
We have time for questions or comments, if anybody has some. As always, be quick if you do. All right. I love that picture, by the way.
Oh, that's cool.
In relation to-
There's a little dude. Some guy. That's a fun part.
We talked about faith and threw that one up there. I'm like, that's perfect.
Mhm.
Because it addresses the question I have for you. Because you talked about loving to be challenged. You talked about how the best lessons you've learned are about critical thinking, about learning to think critically. And then you also addressed that in terms of faith. Just not knowing enough. As with anything, if you don't know enough, you've got to find a way to find out more. So I'm going to put you on the spot. If you're really going to be more serious in searching for faith, how? Study, time, conversations, how you gonna do it?
I think the thing that really tingles my faith senses per se is when I'm around other people and I see something in people. So I just surround myself with people that I think are on fire for Jesus per se, and I don't know, just see what they have to offer and kind of explore. Yeah.
It does take actually asking them those questions.
Yeah.
Having those conversations.
See what they think and use their opinions to help inform mine.
That's good. All right, thank you.